we have taxation, and then we have national insurance contribution, which is like another tax, but just a different name. And she was saying, oh, so you have to pay this national insurance contribution. I went, brilliant, okay, cool. So I just had a general conversation with the lady. So I didn't even want to go down to court because I thought, you know what, I've got a whole load of other problems. I don't need yours. So I just spoke to her generally on the phone. I said, right, so let me just get this right. So you want some money? And she went, yeah. So you're a woman who wants some money from me? And she went, yeah. I went, okay, cool. Now we're game on. And then I said, right, so what's this national insurance contribution? She goes, man, you've been paying it for 20 years, don't you know? And I went, not really. You know what, I've been re-looking at my life. Everything I thought I knew, I don't know. So I want to double-check again. What the hell is this national insurance contribution? And she said, oh, it's to pay for healthcare and this, that, and the other. And I said, okay, cool. That's nice. And I said, but, you know, one thing I've got an issue with. And she said, what? And I said, it's called a national insurance contribution. Now, doesn't a contribution mean it's voluntary? And there was just like a big, long pause down the phone. And she went, no, you have to pay it. I went, well, that's weird. What kind of voluntary contribution is suddenly mandatory? And then she was confused, and she went, a big pause down the phone. If you literally use logic and the meanings of words, it's a very interesting conversation. And basically, we went back and forth, and she eventually said, well, you know, everybody has to pay tax. And I went, brilliant, okay, excellent. Do you have the law that you're quoting? And she went, yeah, actually, I do have it. And I said, oh, brilliant, excellent. I'm not being funny, but I just wanted you to read it out for me if you don't mind. And she read it out to me, and I said, brilliant. So you keep saying that you have to do this, you have to do that, and you have to do that. And goes, I'm not Japanese you. Who the hell is this you? I'm not a me, I'm not a you. Who's a we? I don't know who these people are. I said, I asked you which law works for me that makes me have to pay. Not me, Ballyman has to pay. And then she started laughing. She said, oh, I see what you're doing. You're messing around with the words. And I said, well, you might see what I'm doing, but what are you going to do about it? Are you going to make me pay? Are you going to make Ballyman pay? Or are you going to make me pay? Are you going to make we pay? Or the people pay? Or you pay? Who's going to pay? And then she started laughing again, and she said, it's a funny conversation. We went round and round in circles, and in the end, she was laughing, I was laughing, and I said, okay, so come on, come back to me again. Try and say it again in a word, in a sentence. And she just gave up in the end and said, you know what, we're not going to get anything out of you, and it's just pointless having a chat with you. But she goes, I did find it funny, and it was a laugh, but you know what, I'm going to leave it with you. And I said, what do you mean, leave it with me? So what, you're going to send me some more of your stupid letters that are just coming back? Coming to my house? And she went, no, I'm just going to send you something. It'll say 0 on it. And I said, oh, okay, thanks. She put the phone down. I thought, oh, that was a bit too easy. I had a laugh and a joke. And then eventually, 2 weeks later, I got a letter saying that the tax due was 0. So their accounts are all married up. Everybody's happy. Thank you very much. But I recommend that if you can speak to them on the phone, try and resolve it quickly, because there's nothing worse in the world than you having to try and figure out how to write, good English, what every single word means, and in a short deadline, having to panic and learn all this sort of stuff. If you can just figure it out just from having a few conversations, that's probably a lot better. Who's making a claim? Is that you, Jodie Foster? Is it you? Are you the the Revenue Tax Service woman? Are you saying that I owe you some money? Yeah. Who is then? Who, the guy in the White House? Is he saying it? Who is actually saying this? You mean his best friend, the one who sits in the office next to him? Who, him? No, not even him. Okay, well, somebody is. You can't keep sending these bits of paper with no signatures on it. Oh, there is a signature. Brilliant. So whose signature is it? Oh, brilliant. I'd love to have a chat with her, because obviously she thinks I owe her a debt. So how do I book an appointment with her? Oh, no, she's far too important. No, she ain't that damn important, because she's taking my money. So I need to have a chat with her. I had I'm probably going to cut off, but I'll explain it very quickly before I do cut off. I had one about local taxation where the local government said that we owed 2 months on a let property, rented property, because it was empty for a while. And they wrote a letter to me saying, we're going to take you to court. And I said, oh, brilliant, excellent. So I just wrote a letter back to them. I said, brilliant. I think, what's her name, Janice Evans, I didn't realise I owed you any money. But clearly you think I do. Well, that's really nice. But I don't quite see what this has got to do with you, because for starters, it's my property. What the hell is it to do with you? But you know what? If you want to take some money from me, perhaps I need to settle on the private side, and maybe me and you should have just a general chat, tea and biscuits. I'll get my checkbook out, ask you a few questions, and once I'm happy, I'll write you the check. So I just wrote a letter, pretty much simple as that, and I wrote it to her, and I got a letter back saying, "Get lost, leave us alone. We don't want no money from you." Okay, cool. I can do that. I love being ignored.
I didn't talk to them on the phone, but I did send a letter, certified return receipt to the Diane Bender, who's the one that's saying that I owe her the money, and I'm not challenging. I'm just asking, if I owe you the money, please send me a bill so that I can see where it is that I owe you the civil penalty for $5,000. But that didn't do anything. They just went ahead and levied my account. They just took the first $1,500 this last month.
Yeah, I mean, like the other thing is when you're writing letters, it almost has to come from an authority kind of way of writing. I call it uncommon law way of writing. Basically, if you're writing, if you put that sentence, but then you wrote a whole load of gobbledygook before that and after that, the whole letter just doesn't have the same effect.
Right.
So sometimes you have to kind of, each letter, to introduce yourself. Who are you? Who you are, John Smith, and who, Jodie Foster is, and you're my public servant. Brilliant. Excellent. So now we know not only the names, but we know who you are and what capacity you are and your nature of relationship between you. And then you start to go into, yeah, you know what, I'd love to pay. I'd love to pay. But in order for me to pay, I've just got to get my paperwork right. And for me to get my paperwork right, I need this thing. So can you quickly send that over ASAP, and I'll write the damn check out? Because the only reason why you end up in court is when you say, no, I'm not going to pay, or there's a controversy, or you disagree with the bill. So you should never really do that, ideally. But
no,
for you,
I actually
on how far you are.
I actually went ahead and just what you said. I didn't refuse to pay. I started out the letter by saying I would gladly pay any taxes which I am lawfully liable for. And I actually used one of Karl's, I listened to one of Karl's talk shows, one of his past episodes, and I used a lot of the wording, or actually all of the wording that was in the sample letter that he suggests people write. And when one of these, when they're faced with IRS problems. But like I said, that didn't do anything. They just went ahead and took my property.
Well, yeah, because you still, one, you used too many words, and two, you filled out a 1040.
Yes, I realized I messed up by.
Well, I'm saying you used a smart-ass comment by saying anything I'm lawfully liable for. Right there. They're going to lawfully liable for. No, it's two syllables. No, that's too many syllables, man. Too long of a sentence. Just say, please send me the bill.
Okay.
Is there a reason why you couldn't just say, can you send me the bill? And say you wanted to work on my car, I wanted to work on your car, vice versa, whatever. Can you possibly imagine coming to a mechanic and just say, I'll pay you whatever I'm lawfully liable for? And I say, can you give me the bill?
Mm.
Yeah, because
and then you've got to remember that these people have got a mountain of paperwork in front of them. They're literally going to read one or two sentences on the page. They're not going to read 50.
As soon as they see that you're a smart-ass, they're going to just say, you know what, nail this guy. I'll give him lawfully liable. I'll show him some lawful liable. And they're going to nail you. You play stupid
early, and I'll send that one in the pile as in to chase the money.
If you just play stupid, you just say, send me the bill. You say, if oh, I owe you money? Oh, gee willikers. Oh, gee, sorry. Can you please send me the bill? Is there some reason you can't talk simple? Why you got to try to make it sound like you're some, the liberty tree's got to be fed by the blood of patriots and tyrants at times? Come on. Stop trying to use lawfully liable. Oh, stop. That's ridiculous. Can you just say, can you please send me, oh, do I owe money? Oh, gee, thank you for reminding me. Can you please send me the bill?
Okay.
I tell people, you got to talk incredibly simple. When I do this stuff, people always say, it sounds like a second or third grader writing this stuff. I said, what I'm doing, people, is incredibly simple, but it's incredibly powerful. It's so simple, it's scary. It's just, well, we can't send you the bill. Well, then how do I know how much I owe? Well, because I'm telling you. And who are you? Oh, my name's Susie. Oh, Susie. So, you're the one who created. You're the one who's gonna, said that. You're the one who you got to try to get rid of a word like liable. So you're the one who's saying that it's true, that I owe this much money. It's true. You see what I'm saying? She will say, well, I don't know what the hell is true. Only God knows. Technically, only God knows what's true. She can't tell you that. She will say, I don't know. Well, they're telling me. Well, who's to say? Who's there telling you that this is how much I owe? Can you get me in touch with this day? I'll hold. Or can you give me their name? The state's name. So I'll call them. Because I don't think that's correct. I think they might be mistaking. I think they might have made a mistake. Like I said, you talk super simple. You stop saying, give me the debt in which you'll verifiably consider is lawful and liable. I'll say, oh, geez, would you stop? You're going to think you're talking like a lawyer? They're going to slam you.
Okay.
They're not going to go anywhere with you. You got to, like I said, it's funny, man. It's like when I tell people if you're setting up a mouse trap or a rabbit trap or something like that, you try to trap these people in committing fraud. You're trying to get them to defraud you out of your property. So we say, well, look at this great trap I got built, lady. Why don't you just walk right into it? She's going to be like, oh, look at one of these letters. Oh, lawfully liable for, oh, boy, he thinks he's going to trap me with this crazy shit. I'm not falling for this crap. And then she's just going to slam you instead. She's going to say, oh, yeah, watch what we're going to do to you. You think you're going to try to trap me with this crap? No, watch what we're going to do to you. And they're going to flip it around. They're going to nail you.
But, yeah, they already did. So at this point, what I want to know is
well, what compelled you to fill it out? I always like asking people this simple question. Take care, Bolly. What compelled you to take a paper, pen, and ink and fill out a form called 1040?
Well, this was before I learned all about this. I mean,
no. I haven't done one since 1987. Since my mom told me when I was a kid. Did you write that document? No. Do you know who you created that document? No. Do you want to be liable for that document and everything that's on it? Well, no. Do you know what any of these words mean? No, not really. Well, then why in God's name would you sign your name to any of this stuff that you have no clue what it is? So I just like asking people, what compels you people to, fill out any of this paperwork?
Because everybody else was doing it.
Everybody else smokes and drinks, and all the other hippies are smoking pot and running around naked in San Francisco. Yeah, I know that's what everybody did in the 60s. Yeah, I know, because everybody else was doing it. It's peer pressure. Like I said, thank God I've never drank, smoked, or did drugs in my life like that. Thank God I smoked enough cigarettes to learn how to blow smoke rings. And, from some girl was older than me, she thought that was pretty cool. And I was like, how do you blow smoke rings? She showed me. So it took about 8, 9 cigarettes. And that was it, just till I learned how to blow smoke rings. So like I said, thank God I didn't do peer pressure. Thank God that peer pressure and stuff. And my buddies used to say, hey, man, you must be a knock. You must be a cop. Call and tell. You must be, because you're not doing drugs with everybody else. I said, hey, look at it this way. There's that much more coke for you clowns. That little much I do, that's not much more for you. So look at it that way. It's a win for you. And I said, I'm going to stay sober, and I'm going to, and I like driving fast cars. So I said, I'll make sure everybody gets home. So like, hey, that's all right. He's okay. He can hang with us, even though he doesn't do drugs. So yeah, I know it's this peer pressure nonsense. You guys are filling out all this ridiculous paperwork because of peer pressure. And it's just like when I went to Canada, and the guy said, well, we want you to sign this paperwork. I said, absolutely, not a problem, especially since you've got a gun and I don't, you know what, and especially since I'm 10,000 million miles from home, you're absolutely right. I'll sign it. Here you go, the big N.A. He's like, what's N.A.? I said, well, you're the lawman, you tell me. And he's like, I don't know what it means. I said, that's what I kind of figured. I said, trust me, that is a signature. And trust me, it's lawful, it's legal. You get a legal, lawful, person down here, you send it to your legal department, they'll tell you what it means. So he's like, oh, okay, whatever. So then before I got on the plane, I said, hey, you want me to tell you what that means? NA, when you sign NA, that means I'm not liable for anything above this paperwork, above this signature. I'm not liable for anything on this paper. I did not create it. It has absolutely nothing to do with me. I assume no liability for anything that's on this document. I just sign it because I was forced to. Now, some people say, well, sign it under duress. No, that's too, they could read it. It says under duress. Huh. Oh, so you're under duress, huh? So we're fucking making you under duress, huh? It's like, you know what? I'm just going to sign NA. How's that? The guy said it means non-applicable. I said, NA can mean many things to many people. I said, but non-applicable? No, that's not what it means to me. But if that's what it means to you, okay. You fine with the NA? He's like, yeah, I guess so. I said, that's fine. I said, I put my mark on it, and I just want to go to hell home. I said, you'll get no fight out of me whatsoever. I said, I'm just here to carry out orders and serve you, which is kind of funny because you're my servant.
Okay.
So, but I guess, did you fill out that? When was the last time you filled out a 1044?
1040. The last time I filed one was in 2010.
Okay,
Actually,
so how much money did they say you owed?
They didn't say I owe them any money. They never returned my property. Again, I understand now that filing the 1040 was a huge mistake, but they kept all of my property. They never returned they never gave me a return, is what I'm saying. They never reimbursed me. So they have $11,000 of my property. And,
no, I'm trying to say, in 2010, did you owe any money? Did they say you owed any back taxes?
No.
Okay, so then how much money do they say you owe now?
They're hitting me with a $5,000 civil penalty because they're saying that I filed a frivolous frivolous claim, frivolous 1040.
In 2010?
In 2008, 2009, and the one they're picking on right now is 2010. I don't know why, but that's the one they picked.
Okay, so they're saying in 2010 you filed a frivolous claim, and how do they believe it's frivolous?
Well, again, not knowing better, I was using their legalese, their code.
Okay, and so how did they say it was frivolous? And all I asked you, a simple question: what are they saying was frivolous about it?
That I'm saying that my earnings are not qualified as wages, salaries, income, tips, et cetera, according to their regulations. So they're saying that that's frivolous.
Okay, so they're saying that's frivolous. That you're saying that your wages is not considered. Is that what you tried to say, that you didn't have an income, that you had wages?
Yes. And okay. I cited their code, stupidly, but I did. I cited their code saying, hey, according to your statutes and codes, it says right here, what I made this past year does not qualify as wages, income, salary, taxes, tips, etc.
Okay. So when you did that, did you, when were you first made aware that they were doing this to you, that they were saying that this was frivolous? When did you get the first notice saying that this is frivolous?
Practically on every filing, they were saying it's frivolous, and then I rebutted and I asked them in writing. I said, okay, well, please explain to me which portion of it is frivolous, and they would never answer me.
Okay, well, you're not answering me either, so I kind of see the communication breakdown between you and them. I asked you a simple question. One more time. When did this occur? Date, year, month, when?
That they said it was frivolous?
Yeah, no, they said ping pong balls are falling out of the sky. Of course, when they said it was frivolous, I asked you a simple question. When did they first send you a notice that your filings were frivolous?
In 2009.
Okay, and then you did it again in 2010?
Yes.
Okay, that's lovely. It took 20 minutes to get that, but that's good. It's a 5-hour show, so I really don't give a damn. But anyway, so 2009, they said it was frivolous. And in 2010, you did it the same damn way anyway, huh?
Yes.
Instead of communicating with them and say, what makes you believe that this is frivolous?
No, that's Carl. That's what I actually wrote back to them. I said, please explain to me what part of this is frivolous.
Okay, when did you write back to them?
In 2009, when I got their frivolous notification, I sat down the very day that I got their notice, and I answered back. I sent it.
Okay, there you go. So you said back what part was frivolous. So what did they say? What part was frivolous?
They never did. That's
okay, why didn't they ever write back?
No, they never wrote back. Then they started saying that
okay,
there was
okay, one more time. Let's do it the hard way. Where did you send this letter?
Where? To the Internal Revenue Service.
Okay, where is the Internal Revenue Service?
I sent it to 5 or 6 different offices. They kept switching offices on me. I sent it to Atlanta. I sent it to Kansas City. I sent it to and 3 other different locations.
Okay, who's the commissioner of the IRS?
The commissioner, I'd have to look that up.
For about 10 years, there wasn't a commissioner because nobody was stupid enough to take that title because they knew what I'm going to tell you next is what was going to happen to them. So there was always associate or assistant commissioners. There was never a commissioner. Almost 10 years went by without a commissioner being in the IRS. Because then I'd say, hey, you know what? Send it to the guy in charge. I don't know why you guys stick around with subordinates. Why don't you guys just go straight to the top? And just say, hey, who's in charge of this effing IRS? Oh, Bob Smith. Okay, I'm going to send a letter to Bob Smith. Hey, Bob, yeah, I don't know what the hell's going on or what kind of ship you run over here. I don't know what the hell's going on, but I'm trying to communicate and send a very simple letter. And all I was asking was a very simple question. How is this frivolous? Thank you, Bob. You know, please, knock your subordinates around in the head a couple of times. Whatever it takes, but make them get their ass into gear because, Bob, I'm sure you're a very busy man. You don't want to deal with my simple, stupid questions. But, you know what, honestly, how is this frivolous? Can you put somebody on this case for me? Thanks a lot. I don't understand why you guys don't go straight to the top. Even my mom she worked for the IRS back in 1988, 89. She was given bullshit down here in Virginia. And a supervisor was given a crack. So I said to my mom, I said, look, you're down in Virginia now. It's different than New York. You know what? She said, yeah, but, she was still working for the IRS. She's like, my supervisor doing this, and this. I said, hey, you know what? Go to the top. What? Go to the top. Go to the director of the IRS. I said, we're not that far away from Washington, D.C. Let's go down and talk to the director. She goes, no. I said, you know what? I'll go down to the IRS building, and I'll go talk to the director. She said, how are you going to get in there? I said, you know what? Every guy's got to go to the bathroom. I said, I guarantee you. I said, I go to a bathroom somewhere. I'll find out where the guy goes to lunch. Or I'll find out where the guy goes to dinner. And I'll meet up with him in the bathroom. I said, I'll catch the guy. I said, I'll find out who this director is. I'll run into him eventually. I'll go down there and talk to the top guy for you. I mean, this is when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I was like, you know what? I'm going to find the top guy, and I'm going to physically get in his face. I'm going to say, you got a problem? Or, hey, I need your help. My mom's got crap over here out in Shenandoah Valley. Her supervisor is giving her hell. There's no reason for this. My mom's been doing this 20, 30 years. There's no reason for a supervisor to give a crap. You want to slap that supervisor around for tough and knock him back a peg or two because my mom's really getting stressed out. I would have done that for my mom. I'd go right to the top. So I said, this is back in the 80s. This is like 25, 30 years ago. I had no problem. I go right to the top. I don't think around. I was only 20-something years old. I don't fool around. Even since I've been a little kid, you go straight to the top. I don't know why anybody would waste their time with some stupid flunky, because almost every IRS agent is seasonal. Almost none of them are full-time employees. My mom was seasonal. I don't think my mom was ever a full-time employee in all those years. And she was a tax auditor. She'd call you in and audit you. I don't know if she was ever full-time. I don't know if she ever worked 12 months straight.
Okay, so
they're just seasonal people. And then when they're done doing that, they go and my mom would work. I remember she was like an accountant for a ball bearing factory up there in New York. So when she got called up for the IRS at the end of every, when the season kicked in again, I said, Mom, why don't you stay at the ball bearing factory? I said, come on. I said, who really wants to be a tax auditor? I said, come on, you just people cry and they lose their homes and you destroy their lives. She said, well, somebody's got to do it. I said, you're a good little Nazi, man. I said, just stick with the Bull Bearing Company. And she's like, no, I get government benefits. I said, man, that's some pretty cold shit. I said, well, you got to sleep with yourself at night, not me, man. I mean, I couldn't understand how she did that job. And she said, it'll get them closer to God. I said, oh, yeah, it'll get them closer to God, all right. They'll probably kill themselves, man, get them closer to God. But that's what I said to people on my show plenty of times. I said, oh, this will make a man out of you. Until you know how to control that centralized government or that state government, you're always going to be there, that parent patriot nonsense. You're always going to be under their, custody, under their watch. Until you know how to go into court and be a man, you're always going to be subordinate to them. You're always going to be one of their little citizens. And like I said, when the Department of Justice man told me that, he says, there's nobody here in the United States government that could help you. There's the state of Alabama, yeah, they clearly stole your child. There's no doubt about it. But there's nothing the federal government, the United States government, could possibly do to help you. He's like, I said, this is ridiculous. I said, but you see the contract? He said, look, sir, I know exactly what they did. But until you know how to act like a man and go into court and act like a man, you'll never see that kid. So I said, but I am a man. He says, you have no clue what the hell you're talking about. And I said, but look, wait a second. My mom's here, stepdad's here, my brothers and sisters. I used to... my dad left when I was 16. I took care of my whole freaking family. I said, I've been the man of the house since I was 16. I'm like 30 years old now, 35 years old. What are you talking about? I'm not a man. He says, you have no clue what it means to be a man. I said, buddy, I'll work morning, noon, and night. I'll run rings around you. He says, it has nothing to do with work. It all has to do with the lifestyle. And when you walk into that court, they'll know when a man appears. And until you appear as a man, you ain't never going to get any child back, ever. So I was like, huh. I said, I had no idea what he's talking about. I was kind of insulted, especially since he did it in front of my whole family. But I had no idea what he was going on about. But it took me, he told me this back in 2002, 2003, and I figured out about 2009. It took me about 6 years to figure out what the hell he was talking about. So I try to teach you guys as much as I can, like 70 or 80% of what it means to be a man, but I leave the rest to you guys, because it's not fair for me to teach you all the way through.
But I just want to be pointed in the right direction, Karl, and I ordered you.
That's what I try to do. I try to point the people in the right direction. And I say, well, who told you to put paper, pen, and ink in your hand and write anything? And then I say to you, why don't you go straight to the top? Why are you dicking around with people at the bottom or people in the middle? Why? If somebody's stealing your money, is there some reason why you're not calling up the director or not calling them up right into the director saying, hey, somebody stole my property. It's going to come out of your IRS. It's under your control. What the hell's going on? I asked them back in 2009, 5 different places, what the hell's frivolous about it? Nobody'd answer me. I did the best I could to try to resolve this thing. What the hell's going on, Bob?
Okay.
There you go. I mean, that's all I do to people. I say to people, make sure when you're writing letters to these government employees that you make sure you're writing it to, like, your grandma, who's about a month or two away from dying, and she's worth $1 billion, and you want to keep her in her good graces, so you're going to be just as sweet and kind and polite as possible. You're not going to use any of this, oh, well, it's lawfully liable, Grandma. You're going to say, oh, hi, Grandma. You're going to talk to her like a cupcake. You're not going to come at her like a tiger.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and find out who the director of the IRS is and send them a letter and just keep it.
Write them a beautiful, lovely letter. Make believe you're writing to your grandma.
Okay.
Because, like I said, my mom is somebody's grandma. So if I saw somebody writing something hateful to my mom, I said, Mom, you put up with that bullshit from this guy? Look at this letter he wrote you. Hey, Mom, how about we slam this guy? So like I say to people, or do you want somebody at the IRS or the ARS for Australia or the CRA for Canada? Do you want somebody to read the letter and say, wow, this was a really nice, lovely letter? Or do you want somebody to say, oh, yeah, you want to be a wise guy? Yeah, you want to talk to me? Oh, you think you're going to lawyer up on me? Oh, you think you're threatening me? Oh, is that what you think? All right, I'll show you smarty pants. I'll just close down your bank account right here. What's your number? Boom, it's gone. His bank account is closed. Let them try to figure out how to open it. They don't care. They're just like any other human being on planet Earth, man. They got feelings. You're not talking to a robot.